It's Paul Joseph Watson with Infowars.com, and we're talking to Dan Dix of PressForTruth.tv. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, what I want to know, Dan, and what a lot of the viewers will want to know is how you got involved in the truth movement, how it came about, and what advice you would give to other budding activists who are trying to, carve out their role in this movement.
Sure. To give you a bit of the backstory and how I got involved, I first became aware of some of these issues back in, it was 1998, 99, around that time when I was in school. I had a friend of mine tell me about chemtrails was actually the first topic that I was exposed to in this stuff, and I was very, very skeptical about the whole thing, specifically the idea that it would be the government doing something nefarious to the people. I thought that just sounded ridiculous to me at the time. But then having begun looking into it, I started seeing there's something to this here. And I remember back in those days, I had a friend who was very into this, and he gave me a big box of documentary films on VHS tapes. I was watching documentaries on VHS back then. And, I went down the rabbit hole and my mind was expanded, and I went into all sorts of other areas of research. And it was shortly after 2001, after 9/11, that I started getting active. I started meeting like-minded people and joining meetup groups and getting out and doing street actions in the streets, handing out DVDs and that sort of thing, flyers and information, and starting to actually do something, get active. And I did that for a few years and got to the point where I felt, it's time to take it to the next level. So that's when I started the YouTube channel, started the website, and just started documenting things, and eventually got a camera. And, my first time taking a camera to one of these events was at Bilderberg in 2006 in Ottawa, and documented the whole thing. And from then on, I knew this is something that I want to continue doing. So ever since then, I've just been stepping up my game. And that's pretty much how I got started. That's the background story in a nutshell.
So, it's a minefield for people just starting out, though. There's so many areas of research. What would your advice be to a newbie who this has all just hit for the first time, and they're kind of the rabbit in the headlights?
Well, it's easy to perhaps feel overwhelmed, but I would say, take everything one step at a time. Basically, don't think too far ahead. Sometimes people will have big ideas about what they want to do. When I got into making documentary films, for example, that wasn't really the plan. It just kind of came about that way. I covered a protest in 2007 in Montebello, Quebec, not knowing what I was going to do with the footage. Just thought maybe I'd put them on YouTube. But then we quickly, after getting the footage, finding out what happened with the provocateurs, we realized we have something here. We maybe have the workings of a film. So it's just really, it's about kind of taking it one step ahead, one step at a time, not thinking too far ahead about what the end piece is going to be, and just taking it one step at a time is what I would say.
That's good advice. Once you've got the content, you can work it around anything, and you don't necessarily have to jump straight into it. You can wait to see where the pieces fall. I saw the excellent Occupy Bilderberg 2012 video which you did on YouTube yesterday, and you were actually out in the streets of Toronto asking people what they thought, or if they'd even heard of the Bilderberg group. Tell us what kind of response you received.
Well, pretty much everyone said no. Just about everybody said no, they've never heard of it. But then when I started to give them the background, the story, and I explained to them just who these guys are, some of them, with the kind of cognitive dissonance that goes on, just said, yeah, it doesn't mean anything to me. That's has nothing to do with my world. And some of them just brushed it off. And then some of them said, that sounds familiar. I think I've seen a documentary on that. Are you referring to secret societies or those sorts of things? And so, although they haven't heard the word Bilderberg, there were still a small percentage of people who were aware of this concept that people meet in secret, and that there is the few who are controlling the many. So it was great to get out in the streets and tell people about that, especially with this one coming up. And in that particular video, I really wanted to focus a little bit on the Canadian connection, because that's sometimes overlooked. Bilderberg has a huge influence on Canadian politics. Some people don't realize that, Pierre Trudeau and Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin, Stephen Harper, all these guys have attended the Bilderberg conferences. And not only on our economy is highly affected too. We got the head of TD Bank, head of Royal Bank, head of the Bank of Canada, all attending Bilderberg. And as I point out in the video as well, their influence over the media is clear. Peter Mansbridge of the CBC is a member of the Bilderberg group. And then, of course, there's Heather Reisman. This lady is the CEO of Chapters and Indigo Books, and she's on the steering committee for Bilderberg. So she's plays a big role in finding new recruits and recruiting people to the meetings, people who have something to do with whatever they're going to be talking about that year. So in that video, I wanted to focus somewhat on the role that Canadians play, and I hope we got that out there to people, because, as I said, Bilderberg has a huge influence on Canadian politics.
And to me, watching that video, it also came across quite clearly that there's a kind of double-edged sword out there with the awakening, which is the fact that a lot of people are becoming aware of Bilderberg and the general issues surrounding it, but then, on the flip side, a lot of people are becoming dumber and dumber, and they not only do they not know about Bilderberg, they barely know who the Prime Minister is, who's the head of the World Bank or anything like that. They have no interest whatsoever. So it really came across the fact that while there's a great awakening going on, there's a lot of people who are getting dumber and dumber, unfortunately. But that's something that we've got to target. Obviously, a lot of young people are like that, but once they start getting into their later years, then they begin to stick their head above the parapet and see that there's more to the world than, just getting high or getting drunk or just being mindless. So, that's the challenge, really. Now, I've seen the Occupy Bilderberg Facebook page, which was set up in response to Alex Jones's call for Occupy Bilderberg 2012, and we've got 800 people on there who have said they're attending. Of course, that's not a guarantee, but then there's another 500 or so who said they may attend. So I'm hopeful, bearing in mind last year in Switzerland we had probably at the peak 200 protesters. I'm hopeful that this is going to be an all-time record turnout in numbers protesting against Bilderberg. How do you think Bilderberg are going to react to that, given the fact their whole agenda is based around keeping everything secret and out of the spotlight?
Well, they're definitely going to have to do something. They've already had to acknowledge their existence by setting up their website just a few years ago and having an official Bilderberg website. And I remember when I was there in 2006, there had to be about 20, maybe 30 people at the peak of that particular protest. So even in the last 6 years, it's really, really growing. And as you said, as the years go on, hundreds of more people. So yeah, this year I would love to see 1,000 people, 2,000. That would be incredible. And basically it would force the Bilderberg group to, it would expose them, and more people around the world are going to start learning about it. It may even cause the mainstream media to have to cover it. It's hard to ignore something like that when there's thousands of people gathering outside of a hotel. So it should be interesting to see where this group leads. Who knows? Maybe in, 10 years from now or something, if this continues progressing, Bilderberg might end up becoming something like a NATO or a G20 type of event, where the whole world has become aware of it, and thousands of people show up every single year. That's definitely quite possible. So how they're going to handle it, it's tough to say, but there's no doubt about it. They don't like the fact that we are shedding light on the deeds that they're doing in the dark.
Well, indeed, and I'm sure they won't be going on any more nature walks anytime soon because that kind of blew up in their face last year. You mentioned G8 and NATO there. That's a question I wanted to ask. Why do you think the left, the political left, is so reticent to protest against Bilderberg, yet they'll turn out in their thousands to protest G8 and NATO? Is it merely the fact they don't know about it as much, or is there a kind of stigma attached to Bilderberg?
That's a good question. I've been fascinated about the various genre aspects of different political ideologies and stuff, but I would have to say it's probably more likely that they're just not aware of it, or don't know the true significance and the actual amount of power and influence that these guys have. I would say it's more so about that. Some of them may have heard the word, but a lot of people, as we saw in the video I put out, will brush this off as conspiracy theory. The moment you bring up words like, behind closed doors, meeting in secret, they start thinking, oh, that's conspiracy stuff. So perhaps I think maybe it's just a case of not enough people knowing the true power that these guys have, the true amount of influence that they have on the world. So again, that's all part of the reason why we need to change that. We need to expose these guys, get out there, get active, bring your video cameras, do everything you can to document this event, to bring it to the attention of people who are going to NATO summits and G8 summits. These people have good intentions. They're getting out in the streets because they know they're getting screwed over. But the key is to wake these people up to the fact that Bilderberg is one of the top, most influential and powerful people who really are controlling things. So that's why we're focusing on this Occupy Bilderberg that Alex called for, which I think is a great idea. That's the problem, I think, with the Occupy movement, is this concept of, the 99% versus the 1%, 1% being generally your millionaires on Wall Street and so forth. I don't think that's necessarily the problem. I think it's more about the 99.99 against the 0.01, and the 0.01% is certainly groups like the Bilderberg group.
Well, that's the point. I mean, my main issue, my main beef with Occupy Wall Street is the fact that, they're targeting the wrong people. And I mean, we've documented the fact that it's been hijacked by the labor unions, by the Obama administration itself, and it's all being directed towards seemingly taxing and trying to reduce the living standards of the middle class, when, as you said, forget the 1%, this is the 0.01% meeting at Bilderberg. And David Swanson, who is a big leftist activist, he exposed the Downing Street memo, came out and basically said, look, forget all the stigma about, birtherism or libertarianism or conspiracies and all that kind of stuff. Get rid of the pejoratives and just focus on the fact that we've got 120 top power brokers out of the entire globe. They admittedly create the consensus that changes policy behind closed doors with no regard for democratic will of the people. And let's just get more people aware of it, and then maybe we can increase the turnout numbers. Final question, Dan, since you're also a subject of the Queen there in Canada. I did a video recently expressing my excitement at the upcoming Diamond Jubilee. So I'm wondering how you're planning to celebrate the fact that we're ruled by inbred German hereditary hobgoblins.
Yeah, I haven't really planned how I'm going to celebrate that one yet. Maybe I'll get a bunch of people together to have a big old party and celebrate that that fact. But I hadn't caught your video. I'll check it out as soon as I'm done with this. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that we are under the rule of the Queen for the most part. Definitely, we're going to have to keep an eye on that one. I haven't seen your video, but I'll be checking that out very soon for sure.
Well, I'm going to be on the bouncy castle. I'm going to be outside the pub, and everybody's going to be having a good time. No, it was just
Nice.
the point. The video was about how people in Britain have got so little to be patriotic about that when they try and fly the St. George's Cross flag, the white and red English flag, it gets banned because it offends minorities and stuff. But when it's the Union Jack for a royal wedding or a Diamond Jubilee, encouraged by the establishment, and everything's okay and you can go mad and celebrate. So it's just about how the establishment hijacks patriotism and misdirects it down these alternative routes, when in reality, real patriotism, if you're British, should be about, you know, the Magna Carta, common law, everything that became the foundation of the American Republic. When it's not, it's being misdirected into worshipping Germanic hereditary ruling families.
Yeah,
what's your take?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well said.
You will bow down and worship the Queen.
That's pretty much what it amounts to, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big pageant. All right, Dan, well, thanks for your time, and we look forward to seeing your reports. I presume now you're probably going to go, is that correct? Because you were trying to raise the funds.
Yeah. For the last few days, I put up a chip-in widget on my pressfortruth.ca and also pressfortruth.tv, and people have been contributing so that they can help send us to Chantilly, Virginia to cover this event. So I'm blown away by the amount of support we've been getting. I feel truly blessed and lucky to be getting this kind of support. So it looks like we are going to be attending the Bilderberg conference now. We're nearly 3/4 of our way to reaching our goal. So that's close enough for me now to think that I'm going to go ahead and book the trip. And so we'll certainly be there. And for anybody else who is going there, just be sure that you go prepared, have plenty of battery power for your cameras, plenty of tapes or discs or chips or whatever you record on. You know, bring food and suntan lotion.
Definitely bring the food.
Yes, absolutely.
That was one of the main problems being at Bilderberg all day. Nothing to eat.
That's exactly it. You don't want to have to leave.
You don't want to miss anything, do you?
You don't want to miss anything. You don't want to have to go get food. So be very prepared to stay there for, say, 10 hours each day. Battery power, water, food, you know, sunscreen, whatever you need to be outside documenting, filming all day. And to everybody who's planning on going, I hope to see you all there.
Okay, Dan Dix, pressfortruth.tv. We appreciate your time and we look forward to your Bilderberg 2012 reports. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.